Hello, and welcome to Fifi and the In-Between, the channel for original short stories of fantasy to occupy your mind and inspire your deepest self. Today we have the story Under the Oak Root. The war did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces. First as rumors, as thin as fallen leaves in autumn. Then as sounds, hushed whispers, the silence of birds, distant thunder on a cloudless day. Then as the way that grown-ups stopped finishing their sentences around children, looking at each other with quick glances to shut each other up. Then smiling over nothing, laughing at things that sounded nothing like jokes. By the time the children learned the word for what was happening, the war already had a name. The keeping. The government said the war would keep the right people safe and keep the wrong people out. Allie learned how to prepare by watching her mother arrange items in the house, important things near the door, heirlooms sewn into clothes, dry foods in bags, gas cans in the garage, potatoes buried in the cellar, cash under the sink in jars labeled bacon grease, emergency medical kits under beds, a gun, out of reach, but loaded, always ready for something that might come fast. Her sister Nadine learned readiness by listening to her father about how to recognize the sound of shots at a distance, how to tell invaders from farmers by the music they listened to. Little Esme learned when to be silent, how to quiet her breath, and how to cry with her hand over her mouth so that no one could hear her fear. You may think they were brave children, but they were careful ones, which in wartime may be more important than bravery. There was an oak tree that stood at the edge of their fields, where the land dipped and rose again. In a wagon, this is the place that felt like a roller coaster. The tree was old, older than the house, older than the road they lived on, older than the first generations of their family that arrived here. One of its ancient roots pushed up from the earth and folded back into it, making a hollow that 3 children could crawl into if they were small and willing to get dirty. That was where the children hid during their games, and also during the family drills. The ground under the root smelled of damp leaves and earthworms. It curved overhead like the rib of a whale carcass. When the wind moved through the trees, it sounded like a waterfall. Nadine said it sounded like the tree was peeing on them. Allie said it sounded like the tree was whispering a song. They had hidden there many times. Once when their parents were fighting, once when there was a tornado nearby, once when they saw a mean-looking coyote wandering alone, foaming at the mouth. This time, they were told to go, while their fearful parents stayed in the house. This time, the air under the root felt tight, as if they might run out of oxygen and suffocate. Allie counted things when she was afraid. Beetles. The caws of crows. Nadine listened. She pressed her ear against the root and swore she could hear their parents' voices. Esme held something in her hands and refused to let it go. An orange. They had found it that morning before they were told to hide. A paper bag laid torn by the roadside, its contents gone, probably eaten by animals. Dust from the dirt road coated it like ash after a fire. When Allie kicked it, something rolled free, bright enough to make them all freeze. An orange. Whole. Fresh. Rare. For a moment, none of them touched it. Things from far away felt like traps, like curses, like poison. Esme, always quick to act and slow to think, snatched it up. The others watched in fear and tried to save her from it, grabbing at her hands. She laughed and curled her fingers around the fruit, blocking her sisters from taking it. The laugh shot into the air like a bird, and her sisters looked around startled, sensing something wrong about the air around them. Everything was too quiet and still. Allie hushed her, heart racing, but they had already made themselves known. If someone was nearby, they would be crawling towards them now, low in the tall grass or in the ditch next to the road. They ran inside the house to tell their parents. Mother and father were sitting at the table, pale and sweaty. They barely looked towards the girls. Without moving, Mother quietly uttered sharp words. "Go to the oak tree now. We have guests coming, and they don't know you are here. Don't say a word. Just turn and go." The girls moved towards the back door. As they gently closed the door behind them, they heard tires on the gravel, music playing from a radio. It was the classical music the government provided to the soldiers. The sisters started running and didn't stop until they reached the oak. They slid quickly into their hiding place and listened between gasping breaths. They waited. Overhead were noises: wind, planes, crows, popping sounds like rocks hitting a shed. Somewhere nearby, something burned, and the smell slid under the roots like a venomous blind snake trying to sense a live meal, flickering its tongue. Above them, footsteps. A man stood very still and leaned on his staff. His name was Neville. A weak name, he thought. Scholarly, maybe. Someone who would rather be alone in a library. He had been given the staff when he was barely older than the children hiding below. He had learned its weighted power the way you learn a language, through repetition and correction and the fear of making mistakes in front of others. The staff had a name, too. He did not say it anymore. It was a burden, and he was exhausted. At the head, there was a finial. It was dulled and unimpressive. It was in the shape of an acorn to represent wisdom and endurance. It wasn't useless, but it had seen better days. The wood, once noble and bright, was nicked, faded, and splintered. Not from today, but from everything that had happened over the years, from lifting the staff again and again to reshape the world. He was tired of the way the staff decided things for him, who lived, who died, who was worthy of redemption, who would suffer. He heard the children before he saw them, not with his ears, with a warmth emanating from the staff. It sensed breath. It sensed fear. He pushed the staff's tip into the soil. The earth accepted it without question, bending to the will of such an old power. "Come out," Neville said. His voice was gentle. Despite the responsibility he had been given, the things he had done in the name of justice, he was still the timid man he'd always been. Nervous. Lonely. He liked to feed ants and watch them climb all over each other and gather the spoils. He preferred a world without people. It was less complicated. But children were like foxes or deer. He found them amusing. Under the root, Allie felt like vomiting. Nadine's hand found hers sweaty and firm. Esme rubbed her fingers along the dimpled surface of the orange, its peel warm from her anxious palms. They did not move. They did not speak. Esme cried gently, as she had been taught, with her hand over her mouth. "Please," Neville added, "I can make you come out, but I'd rather that you make the choice. It will be far less painful that way." Breath tense, Allie nodded to her sisters. It would be better to do as he says. They crawled out one by one, blinking the darkness out of their eyes and seeing the outline of a giant but slender man. They were smaller than he expected, more frail. They hadn't really seen the war yet, and their eyes hadn't given up on humanity. Neville squatted down so that they could see him better in their own light, not in the painful glare of the sun. "What's that?" he asked, nodding toward Esme's hands. She looked down, then up at him, afraid the orange was his, that he would think she stole it, that her parents might be dead because she took it from the bag. "A sunfruit?" she said. The response struck him harder than any blow. She didn't know the name of what she was holding. Kept far from the war, protected from the outside, this orange was unknown to her. He laughed, and it startled the children. They were ready for cruelty, but not for laughter. "May I?" he asked. He held his hand out towards Esme. She hesitated. Then, with the careful gravity of someone offering something sacred, she handed it over. The orange was firm, sweet-smelling. Its color reminded him of a beach sunset or poppies. He pressed his thumbnail into the peel, and the oils of the zest misted the air. Zesty. Bright. Impossible. The war and all it had done to him fell away for a moment. He was a boy the last time he held an orange. He had been sitting on a stone wall while his mother peeled the fruit, the segments shining in the morning sun, promising a juicy snack. She had always given him the first piece. It was their special thing, to sit on a wall, in the morning sun, sharing an orange. The ground shuddered. Shouts shot through the air. Neville, by instinct, did something unexpected. He slammed the staff into the ground, pausing the world around him and the children. Then he peeled the orange. The sound of the skin breaking was loud in the respite he had made for them. He broke it into pieces and handed each child a shimmering jewel of fruit. Allie tasted the sweetness tentatively, unsure of what would happen. When it hit her tongue, her brain lit up, and she felt her shoulders drop. Nadine's breath slowed, and her eyes closed peacefully. Esme grinned, juice dripping from her chin. Neville ate last. The orange did not stop the war. It did not heal the pain around them. It did not make him break the staff into pieces and walk away from his path. But it did remind him that there were other important things to carry with him, that he was responsible for more than the staff. The staff could not pause the world forever, and the quiet they enjoyed quickly faded into the sounds of boots and shouts. When the soldiers approached them, they saw a man with peels around his feet, children with sticky fingers, and an old tree that had seen worse and survived. They smelled the floral citrus in their air and paused, some holding back tears, others with distant half-smiles. Memories of times before the war flooded into the present. Neville watched the soldiers perplexed. His staff had done much by force, but a single orange seemed to melt away the facade of conflict. The soldiers sat under the old tree and reminisced about more innocent times with loved ones that had passed, places left behind, naive dreams forgotten. By the time the smell of the orange faded away, the children were gone, guided away by a quiet man carrying an old, beaten-up piece of wood. The oak tree stood, a breeze rustling through the leaves. The peels lay on the ground, slowly hardening. Ants followed the scent and explored the pith, bitter and soft. The soldiers walked away from the road, the burning house, and their trucks full of music. They wandered through the fields looking for something they had lost, wanting to dream again, to find their loved ones, and to heal from all they'd done and all that had been done to them. There was nothing left to fight for if they forgot who they were before the war. And this was their chance to find it, to nurture it, to repair all that had been done. They didn't know if they would find what they were looking for, or if they'd be captured and killed for abandoning their mission. But something awoke within them, and they had no choice but to walk a different path and hope for something better.